Good day, everyone, and welcome to our final video series on, well, actually, this is the final plat process, and this goes over the explanation and the rules on how to create a final plat using the subdivision regulations we have been talking about. And let's recap kind of where we are to date. If you remember, we started out this process, we talked about the subdivision and how the subdivision process takes place. And then I talked about what was called the sketch plan requirements. The sketch plan was, first of all, that was a rough sketch of what the area to be subdivided was going to be. We looked at the county subdivision regulations under sketch plan, and we noticed that there were certain criteria for submission, and then there was criteria for what actual should be in the document, like what sort of drawing criteria would be required. We went through and we had a module out on how to create the sketch plan. Then we progressed to the preliminary plan. Now remember, the preliminary plan was the process where we actually talked about, these are the details of what's going to be done in the development. I actually like to say this is the part where we say these are kind of the engineering drawings. This is where we talk about things such as the roadway design, the any of that particular information. That's very important. We look at the ground characteristics. We look at how we're going to use the land. Also, what sort of long-term uses this? We're going to be single-family development. Is it going to be commercial? Where are the roadways going to be? How are they going to be handled? How are the existing waterways and things of that nature going to be done? Also have to be in compliance with the Stormwater Management Act, making sure that we're handling any sort of new waters that would be contributing to the municipality here. In addition to that, we actually, in the preliminary plan, we look at all of the details and some of the things that go along with the drawing. I like to say that the preliminary plan is really the engineering-based drawings. That's where engineering and analysis is done on the subdivision process, and that actually is done under the guidance of a civil engineer. And then we come up to the third piece in that, which is the final plat process. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is the final plat process. So in order to help us, as I've done in the past videos, I'm going to go ahead and screen share with the Pueblo County subdivision regulations. I'm going to be pulling those up for us. And if you notice here, you're looking at Title 16 subdivisions. These are similar ones we've been using in the past. As we've been using in the past, except for this time, we're going to be looking at over here, chapter 16-6, which is subdivision in review, which can be found on page 12. And then where we'd be going down a little bit further as I scroll down here in the index, we'd also going to be talking about the final plat requirements right here, which is found in pages 39 through, I believe, 42 here. But I'm going to start out with, let's go ahead and head on down to page 12, and we'll look at some of the plat requirements. Now, again, this is the submission and review, and these are the things that have to be submitted so that they could be reviewed by the municipal government. First thing we have to talk about is who gets these. As we have found out in all of these, they will be going to the municipal government, actually with the intention of getting them eventually to the commission, usually county commissioners. County commissioners would then have to sign off giving approval of the subdivision. In this situation, in most situations, the situation of Title 16 here, they talk about a planning commission. So basically this would be going to the Board of Governors and then, or the Board of Commissioners, and then that Board of Commissioners would then be delegating it down to a planning commission or possibly a planning and zoning officer within the department. The commission will then have to review this final plat, making sure that it is in compliance with the preliminary plat first, which is something that's really important. They want to make sure that whatever you said to do on the preliminary plat, you are then going to in fact do on the final plat. So they'll be looking at that. The preliminary plat has had a lot of time to talk with the municipal agencies and make sure you got the right information. Then it goes to the board for board review, and the board will be looking at it to make sure it's in compliance, so that this actually document, the final document, can then be made public and sent out there for everyone's approval, and conveyances can now start to be to commence after this document has been approved and made public record. I also want to call to your attention in items 13 and pages 13 through, I believe it's about 14 or 15 here. No, actually 16. Pages 13 through 16. It has some boilerplate language that actually is to be placed on your drawing, your final plat drawing. For example, you'll see there's a commissioner certificate, the planning commission certificate. This language will actually have to be submitted on your drawing, and it actually has to be word for word like it's spelled out right here. Of course, the changes made to the appropriate or the particulars, such as the actual persons in those positions and the actual dates and recordation locations of these. But this actual language must be put on the drawing, and this is where you would get this. So it'd be your responsibility as the preparer of the document to take this information, take it exactly like it's at. Go ahead and either make it a CAD-based drawing or make this so that it's an editable document that will then be placed on your drawing set. This will be a requirement. So I just wanted to show you where these are, and they could be actually cut and pasted it within your drawings. Now I'm going to proceed on down to, let's see, I said we were going to be to pages 39 here. So let me scooch on down here to page 39 and we can start looking at that. Okay, so page 39, the final plat requirements. Okay, so the very first thing you see up here it's going to be going to the commission and the planning commission, and the first thing you're going to do is make sure that it's in compliance with the preliminary plan. So whatever you said you were going to do in the preliminary plan, we need to make sure that there hasn't been any changes or anything's different on this one, and make sure that it's in compliance. If you were made recommendations on the preliminary plan, did you make those recommendations, and does the final plat reflect those recommendations, either by the municipality or when in the engineering was sort of looking at that. And if in fact you decide, oh, we did miss something or we're going to change something, a revision to that final plat can be resubmitted. If the only difference is you would have to submit both of them and show those actual changes and where they were handled. The final plat information, what should be on the final plat information? I like to say that the final plat information, like I said, in time past this semester, we talked about the final plat is actually the one that creates the legal document. This is where conveyance of title will take place. So therefore, this is where the legal documents have to be meticulous. There's no margin for error here. There's no way. This is actually going to become public record, and conveyance of title will be taking place off of this document. So looking a little bit here, what should be on there? Of course, the lots, the blocks, the streets, the way you said them. Bearings and distances, those bearings and distances have to be accurate. Now, if you remember the final, both the preliminary and the sketch plan, they said just dimensions, just a certain degree of accuracy. Now they must be extremely accurate in compliance with whatever those accurate requirements are. Also here you would put in any sort of curve data, bearings and distances data, anything that is necessary to define the parcels. All easements have to be done. Any lots and blocks numbering, the names of the streets, any alleyways, anything like that. Also show the location of north and with respect to the rest of the county and subdivisions. Also name and address of the owners of record, probably at this time would be the development of the development company. Total acreage, extremely important here. Have to show the total acreage of the properties, how much of it is absorbed in the use for roadways, how much of it is absorbed into the use of your properties itself, how much of it went to things such as parks and drainage ways, storm management systems, things of that nature. Section, township, and range, of course, that should be very important in there. Also, this is time for the municipal government to make sure that it's in compliance with other agencies. And by that, I mean, if you look over here and under our graphic scale, or under our information just below where it says graphic scale there, it talks about the monumentation here. That monumentation information talks about the regulations that are required for the practice of professional surveying. And so here is a way that the municipal government can say, is it in compliance with the requirements for surveying? Also, is it in compliance with the requirements for the practice of professional engineering? And all of those, are they actually made appropriately and in compliance? So this is their fail-safe to make sure that it's also in compliance with those regulatory agencies. Also the drawing requirements. So we get into 1632-05 here, talks about the drawing requirements. Here you'll talk about it. It can talk about the quality of the drawing, and actually whether it's legible, whether it should be done by a professional, whether it's satisfactory to even become part of the county municipal government's inventory of properties. And also certifications by the professional surveyor at this time need to be on the documents. Signatures and seals, all the appropriate signatures need to be on there. Now, 1632-06 is 16.32.060 asks for supporting documents. The importance of this one here is, in the event the municipal agency says we want to make sure that all of the supporting documents are in place. For example, if you had something like you were up against an existing municipality, and maybe they had a utilities that you had to come, and you want to make sure that you're going to tie onto those utilities, or you needed to show the ownership of those utilities, and you had an agreement between that utility company, this is where they could make sure that they had that in place before they actually did the final submittal of this. Also here, if they needed any sort of other information that would make them feel good about their development. Now, normally you'll notice that they ask for plan and grading information, those things of that nature. Most of that is usually done in the preliminary plan process, but they could in fact require that should they want to. And this is their fail-safe to make sure that they could go back and ask for some of those things should they want to. They should also, are here, they want to make sure that the title is free and clear. So they could ask for some sort of a third-party analysis of the ownership, and that the ownership does in fact is legal. This can happen by either having a title insurance commitment or some sort of insurance of title. That document could be, and maybe, and probably in most situations, mostly would be required by that municipal agency. Also remember things such as the parks that you make in here, the streets that are going to be made in here, any of those areas within your parcel that are going to be dedicated away to some other entity or municipality. For example, if you were to set under an example for a school, that school would then need to have title to that. So they need to make sure that you have free and clear title so that they can make title for that. Also, these things such as your roadways, parks, your stormwater management systems, all of those are free and clear, and that those dedications are very clear and succinct. With that being said, that covers our requirements on the final plat process. So I will be ending this video right here on that. Also want to tell you all that there is another section that we probably want to discuss a little bit, and that is the section on details and detailed drawings. So in our next video series, I'll be cleaning up some of the subdivision regulations with what sort of things go into the detailed drawing process. Thank you for viewing this video, and I hope to be giving you information on the next part of this in the next couple days, and actually be sharing with you some questions about this. Thank you, and goodbye.